imagine all of us having regulated nervous systems, which regulate the people around us, which then regulates the people around them. And so there's more co-regulation in general, or having regulated children who then have regulated children. Like, this work is just so important for the health of our society, for the world, and obviously for ourselves.
The Fatigue to Flow podcast offers a deep, transformative approach to healing burnout and chronic fatigue, going beyond surface level fixes like stress management or supplements. We explore the real roots, nervous system imbalance, harmful psychological patterns, and the mind-body connection. Chronic fatigue isn't just a condition, it's an opportunity for awakening to your greatest self. Each episode blends personal experience with practical tools. If you're ready for lasting vitality, joy, and flow, this episode is for you.
For those who don't know me, I am a holistic psychologist. So in other words, I don't just practice psychology, I bring in other aspects like body talk, which works with the body and mind connection. I am a somatic therapist, so I focus on basically where we hold and how we hold our emotions and our trauma in our body and how it actually affects our physical body. Because psychology only deals with the head, and this often is just a very small part of the story, as you'll come to see today when I share this. Now, my story is that in 2013, after my daughter was born, I just could not pick myself up off the floor. I thought it was because I was a new mum and she slept terribly. But a year into being a mom, I still was absolutely exhausted. And I finally went to go see actually happened to be my sister, who is a functional medical practitioner, a functional doctor. And she diagnosed me with what was then called adrenal fatigue syndrome. I don't believe in adrenal fatigue syndrome now. I think it's all got to do with nervous system dysregulation. But nonetheless, my nervous system was dysregulated and I was exhausted. I felt a weird combination of not being able to sleep because I was wired all the time, but at the same time, all I wanted to do was sleep. And then when I did sleep, I didn't feel refreshed, and I felt anxious and quite prone to almost panicky kind of feelings. I'd had panic attacks in the past, and I had a doctor diagnose depression and try to give me antidepressants. And I said to him, no, I know what depression is. I've studied psychology. I've had depression. This is different. And someone else just said to me, well, it's due to stress, which in some ways he was correct. But the fact is that it had come on the back end of an entire lifetime of me living my life in a certain way and experiencing life in a certain way, so that my body and mind were always in a state that was not conducive to me feeling vital, safe, relaxed, joyful, confident. And I'm wondering if any of you can resonate with those things. Just feeling like it must surely be able to be easier than it is. Like everything is just, perhaps it is fatigue. Perhaps for some of you, it's just feeling a little bit disconnected from joy. Perhaps it's just feeling stuck in your life and constantly living small and knowing that you're here for more, but just not knowing how to get there. And interestingly, a lot of these are all tied together. I'll bring that in. I'm going to share that with you now. But for me, the long and short of it is that the chronic fatigue was sort of, in a sense, the tip of the iceberg. It was my body's way of communicating something to me that I desperately needed to hear, because it brought me back in alignment to my truth and to my true essence of how I am actually, of why I'm here and how I'm meant to be when everything is working as it should be. And I'm not saying it always does, but it does a lot more than it used to. And so there's a lot more vitality, a lot more peace, a lot more ease. Things flow a lot easier. I'm doing work I love. My relationships have deepened. My connections have changed. So much has changed for me since I have had the realizations and been through my own journey. And so this is why I do this work that I do, and why I want to share with you what I'm sharing with you today, because I believe that so many of us have disconnected from our truth. I'll share with you now why. And I've seen what's possible when we figure out what are we here for? Who are we actually when we are stepping back into that? The only way I keep doing this, because it's a very embodied feeling, just being in your center again, coming back home to you. That is what this is going to be about. So I hope that sounds good. I'm going to be focusing on 3 reasons that became clear to me as I did my own journey, went through my own journey. 3 reasons why we feel this chronic overwhelm, burnout. I put resentment in there because we can start to feel quite resentful when it's just always hard, and when we know it should be easier and it's just constantly hard. And just that feeling of perhaps being stuck or living small. And those 3 reasons are as follows, and I'm going to go into these more deeply. One is, and this is the first one that I came to understand, it is your psychology. Obviously, I understood it through my lens of being a psychologist. And it has to do with the ways that we change ourselves to feel safe in life, and how those then impact our health and well-being. The second is how society expects women in particular to show up and express themselves, because we live in a very patriarchal society. But this is changing, and this is very good news. And this is actually the most incredible time for us to step more into our femininity. And that's also a big part of why I do the work I do, because together women are exceptionally powerful. And then the third part is about your nervous system, which is the third part. These are the order in which I've come to understand these in my own life, and then how I've then addressed. I'll share what I've then addressed, how I've addressed them, what I've done to bring back balance. Okay, so when we're born, we are actually incredibly, I call it the golden child. We are creative, we are loving, we are trusting, we are centered in ourselves, we believe the best in everyone, we are able to shine. We shine. I mean, if you've seen children when they're still quite young, there's this beautiful innocence, this playfulness, and that shining, that light. What happens is that as we go through life, we start to realize that certain parts of ourselves are not acceptable to other people. And so what we do is we start to put out that light, little bit by little bit, until that golden child is no longer who's there. And what actually is left is what I call your adapted self. And I also call it the holding self, because in many ways, a lot of our adaptations are about holding things together. So let me describe the holding self, because maybe you'll understand this in yourself or have seen it in yourself. This came about because when I had gone through my burnout and my chronic fatigue, and as I started to heal again, I had a lot of women coming into my practice who were battling also with just feeling like life was out of control, feeling overwhelmed, feeling exhausted. And I noticed that many of them were very similar to me. They were driven, they were perfectionists, they were always rescuing and helping everyone else, and they were holding everything together. So this is the holding personality. It's this holding all the balls up in the air, holding all your emotions close, holding control of everything, holding everyone else, right? And I wonder if you can you recognize yourself in any of that? And when I looked at that in myself, I came to realize that, well, knowing what I know now about psychology, is that is who I'd become through the process of my life, because this is what happens. Like I said, we respond to other people's responses to us. And because we primarily want to be part of a tribe and we want to belong and we need to be accepted and loved in order to survive, we will do what we need to fit in. So let's say, for instance, we're born to parents who had their own wounding, their own mental health issues, parents who were unwell physically, but for whatever reason, they just could not hold the fullness of us. So that's all our emotions. That's our expression of our opinions, for instance. This is when we might have been loud. We might have been playful and laughing. Perhaps these aspects, just for whatever reason, couldn't be held by them because of whatever was going on for them. So then we learn, oh, okay, so I mustn't be so loud. I mustn't ask for too much because my needs upset people. Oh, I mustn't be angry because when I'm angry, it makes other people shut down. Now, I can't tell you how many women have come to me and they've said, no, my childhood was really good, actually. And I don't see any of this in my life. And sorry, I'm on a call for an hour. Oh, no. Okay, so then, sorry, I don't have my phone. I need to go. I'm on a call now, love. Okay. Okay. And so, yes, I'm finding my thoughts again here. So what happens is sorry guys, that threw me off there. It's my children are on holiday and it's been a very long holiday. They've been on holiday for almost a month. And I'm really ready for them to go back. Many women will come to me and they'll say, no, my childhood was fun and it was happy. And let me tell you, I absolutely believe them. And I have no doubt that their parents love them. In most cases, I've unfortunately seen clients where there's been abuse and outright neglect. But in most cases, their parents were always doing the best they could, the caregivers. But often, those caregivers could not hold their emotional state, their emotions. And so it was just too much for them. And they had to then learn that when I show up in this way, maybe my caregiver punishes me outright, but in most cases, it can be like an emotional shutdown or an emotional withdrawal. And that's how they then just sense, oh, okay, for me to be safe and to be loved and trusted, or to feel loved and to feel like I belong, I need to shut down this part of myself. Okay, I just want to make sure that you're all kind of following me here. Can you just give me a thumbs up that you're still listening and that this might be resonating? Okay. All right. Let me go back to my screen. So what happens is this authentic self who we are slowly gets shut down. And this shining light gets put out and the good girl starts to appear. Now, let me also say, sometimes people do the opposite and they become rebels. And this is often the case where they've tried so hard and even the good girl doesn't work anymore. And so then they just outright give up. But in many, many cases, we become the good girl. And we think that this is who we are. I did. I thought that I was strong and that I was in control and that I was a very driven. And I thought that being a perfectionist and being driven was valuable, was of value. And so that was who I showed to the world, and that was how I experienced life through that frame. And it was really interesting because after I became unwell, I started to see that those very aspects of myself that made me who I believed was worthwhile and who made me acceptable were the aspects that were absolutely exhausting me. Okay, so a big one for many of you might be rescuing, where we're always supporting and helping others, actually ours to take on. And this can be because somewhere along the line, it might have helped us to feel safe, to help those around us to be safe. It might have we might have received positive feedback through rescuing, through fixing for others. But it's exhausting because usually when we do that, we negate our own needs in favor of everyone else's needs around us. So the long and short of what I'm trying to say here is the golden child starts off full of light, in her truth, in her full essence, and she slowly starts to shut down parts of herself and take on other aspects and adaptations. Now, I really want to say this, very important, because I said to you, most people say that they had happy childhoods, and I'm sure they were. What I'm talking about here when I talk about trauma is any moment in which it did not feel safe to be your authentic self. This is a quote from Dr. Valerie Rain. And that would have been particularly when there were, for instance, strong opinions that were voiced or strong emotions that were expressed. That's often when our authentic expression is not acceptable. And especially in women, passion, anger, taking up space, being busy, those things are often not accepted. And so this creates that adapted personality, is how we then show up in life. And our personality determines, one, how we then have a relationship with other people. It determines how we experience life around us as well. And it will determine how we then respond to life. It's all framed through the personality that we have adapted to feel safe, to belong, and to feel worthy. So that's number one, the good girl adaptation, or the holding self. Okay. Secondly, now why is this not? I'm trying to change my slide. There we go. Sorry, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing again, because for whatever reason, it's not responding to me. There we go. Okay, so secondly, I've sort of alluded to this already. When I speak about the good girl, and I say girls are expected to sort of show up in a certain way, and it's so subtle, isn't it? It's really, really, it's not overtly spoken about, but we kind of just pick it up from our mothers, from our aunts, our sisters, those people around us. And in many ways, there's a way in which girls are supposed to show up and what's not appropriate. I do think it's changing. But let me first explain this through the framework of feminine and masculine energy. Now, feminine and masculine energy are present in everything. So, for instance, nighttime is feminine, daytime is masculine. Winter is feminine, summer is masculine. So nature has many examples of the dualities of masculine and feminine. Now, we also hold these dualities in us. And in fact, they're different sides of the same coin. So we need to have both. But what's tended to happen is that all of us have favored masculine energy. So to highlight what these mean, I'll sort of try and give you an idea conceptually. And one is, for its most basic form, though I've put them there, it's doing energy is masculine energy and being energy is feminine, or it's body versus mind. In its purest form, the masculine is actually stillness. It is it's a container. It's about direction. It's about clarity and knowing. Whereas the feminine is about the unknown. It's about being in the body. It's emotions. It's intuition. It's creativity. It's a communion with others and collaboration. Whereas the masculine can be quite individual. There's a big focus on the individual within masculine energy, and the feminine is about the collective. And can you see where I'm going with how important it is to be bringing the feminine energy into our current day experiences? Because right now, old masculine systems are starting to fall away. This includes the education system, which is no longer working in many ways, the government. There's many examples of where the distorted masculine energy that is disconnected from feminine, and that's patriarchy. Patriarchy is disconnected from femininity. It is no longer working so well. And we're going through a massive fallout right now. But the main gift we can take from this is an opportunity to bring back more balance. So we have a history. In fact, we had a matriarchal society once upon a time, where there were priestesses, where many of the leaders were women, and there were also many women who had incredible knowledge as healers. But patriarchy came along, and the temples were destroyed. The learnings of the women was they in fact burned a lot of the books and much of the learning of these learned women, these leaders, and this continued through the era of, for instance, witches and witch burning, where the narratives are so interesting. I've really enjoyed learning about this because it's made so much sense to me. But the witch narrative of the broomsticks and the cats and the cauldrons and the frog's legs, and the grey old women with warty noses, that it all has a basis in the narratives that were spun to make people turn against women who were knowledgeable. Most of the time, the knowledgeable women were the women who were elders. They carried the knowledge down. So the elderly women came to be seen as crones, as warty and shame, as having shame for being old. So whereas before the elder was revered, the older women were revered, this was what was shifted. Because if no one paid attention to the elders anymore, that knowledge couldn't be passed down. The women who were learned, the women who were more educated, had germs, carry disease, and or dirt, and also rats and mice. So they learned to sweep out their homes and to bring in cats to catch the rats and the mice. So there's where that came from. And of course, many of these women were medicine women who learned to work with natural properties and different flower essences and parts of animals that had different chemical compounds within them. And that's the cauldron and brewing, potions and things. In truth, but was spun with a negative spin, was narrated with a negative spin to turn people against the knowledge that women carried. And so there's this history of disconnection from the body, where also it became shameful for women to be sexual, to show their bodies, to be proud of their bodies. I mean, now obviously this is changing, but it's almost now women are objectified. So it's their body, that's all that's seen. And it still detracts from the fullness of them. Okay. So there's a history of disconnection from the woman as a whole being in her body, as her body is, being in touch with her emotions. This is all now seen as shameful. And instead, what's happened is that there's been a lot of value placed on distorted masculine qualities of knowledge, knowing everything intellectually, of being driven, of being the kind of in control, top-down control, that individual focus versus the collective. All of these qualities are revered, which makes women believe that in order to be successful, they need to be like men, in a sense. Now, the problem is that we've been constantly trying to live in alignment with the distorted masculine templates and way of being, which is not, our bodies are not actually built for that. For instance, the male body has a hormone cycle that changes every 24 hours. Why do you think the work day is 24 hours? And the same every day of the week except for weekends. It's because the men's bodies will reset every day, and they can function the same way tomorrow as they did the day before. To some degree, things like the lunar cycle and seasons will impact energy for men, but not nearly as much as menstrual cycles will impact the body for women. So women can't function that way. We're not supposed to function on a 24/7 calendar, the same every day, rinse and repeat. Our bodies aren't designed for that. But the way we work and corporations and the whole system has been created around men's bodies. Even research, medical research, it's all been done on men. They're only starting to see now that a lot of the research on hormones, they research hormones even, and stress responses. And there was another one I said the other day, I couldn't believe it, where they focused on men's bodies to do the research, but it doesn't consider the fact that women's bodies are wired totally differently. Okay, so one, we've been adapting ourselves to fit in, to be good girls, so we loved and worthy and safe. Two, we have been placed in, we unconsciously become conditioned to meet the more distorted masculine role that most of the patriarchal society lives up to. That's two. Thirdly, our nervous systems are foundational to all of this. Our nervous systems can make and break how we experience life. And this is something that's only come to me recently in the last 3 or so years. It has made such a difference to me, understanding this about myself. In fact, to the point that I was only actually diagnosed as ADHD 2 years ago, because many women don't even recognize that they are neurodivergent, or particularly ADHD, because again, the criteria for ADHD are very much based around how it shows up in men. Okay, so let me go back to the beginning with all of this. So many of the women I see who are battling with chronic fatigue and burnout, who are battling with disconnection, chronic overwhelm, who are just stuck, they have sensitive nervous systems. They are very empathic. They feel things in a big way. Their senses are heightened, so they often are impacted by loud noises more so than others, or physical touch. And I'm going to let me come around to neurodivergence just now. These sensitive nervous systems mean that there's much less stability. So emotions are up and down. It can be big emotions at times and then fine. But it's hard to come back into the baseline again. Energy levels are up and down. Again, it's hard to come back into the baseline. So whereas a more robust nervous system is going to easily come back into that rested state, a sensitive nervous system tends to very easily and often go into an activated fight or flight state, or fawning, which is people pleasing, or goes into a collapsed state, which is shut down. Now, all of those states are necessary for self-preservation. So we do need to use them. We need to have some fight or flight. We need or activation. We need to have some collapse and shutdown. But if we're doing it too often, it impacts our health in numerous ways. Because, for instance, if we go into cell danger response at the bottom, Dr. Robert Navier founded this concept of cell danger response, or at least he was researching it and shared his findings. And that is that our mitochondria in our body can only be creating energy, or they can be in cell danger response, which is to communicate danger to the rest of the cells in the body so the body will respond. So if your brain perceives a threat, if your nervous system goes into collapse or fight or flight, your mitochondria shut down, stop making energy, and go into cell danger response. And there's even 3 stages of cell danger response, and we can get stuck in those stages for months at a time, in fact, which explains a lot of the chronic illnesses where there's an autoimmune. So part of a sensitive nervous system is that the immune system is not easily as modulated and will become overreactive or underreactive at times. So it can even explain some of that. So if we have sensitive nervous systems, and we don't even know we have sensitive nervous systems, we're not aware that we are spending a great amount of our time in an overly activated or hyper-aroused state, or a shutdown. Cannot be vital, we cannot be calm, we cannot be creative, we cannot be connected, our whole entire metabolism is impacted by these shifts and changes. It impacts our weight, it impacts our gut motility. So like chronic constipation can be part of this. There's so much that's tied into an overly sensitive nervous system that we never even realize this. It is finally slowly becoming known that without a robust nervous system that can easily come back into a rested state, health is not going to come right, no matter what you do or throw at it, no matter how many supplements you take, or no matter how healthily you eat. If the nervous system is not stable and robust, so that you can go into your fight and flight and then come back into rest and digest, and maybe drop a little bit into collapse, but come back into rest and digest. When that's not happening, it impacts so many areas of our lives. Now, neurodivergence is actually a sensitive nervous system as well. And there are many forms of neurodivergence. So a neurotypical nervous system is going to be your more robust, stable nervous system. Neurodivergent is going to be your more sensitive nervous system. And there's diagnoses as well, but you don't have to necessarily have a diagnosis to have a sensitive nervous system. And in many cases, these boxes are like I said, they don't necessarily recognize the nuances of the feminine expression of that. So ADHD, being on the spectrum, ASD, dyslexia, many of the intellectual challenges come from neurodivergence. Even OCD and bipolar, obsessive compulsive disorder and bipolar, are forms of neurodivergence. And so it comes with this with a sensitive nervous system. And what happens is I think we definitely have, there definitely appears to be a genetic component. So you're born with a predisposition to a certain type of nervous system template. And you will see that in many families with a very empathic or an HSP, a highly sensitive person, that is a sensitive nervous system, the mother or the father or both will have the same. But there's also a lot of evidence showing that it's actually the environment you grow up that also shapes your nervous system template. So remember I said we may grow up with caregivers who are unable to hold our emotional expression and our authentic expression because they are very easily activated. This could be because they have sensitive nervous systems. So we then pick up, so what it means is they can't co-regulate. So co-regulating is when I'm falling apart, I'm really scared, so I start shouting because I'm overwhelmed, and then my mother or father shouts back at me and tells me to go to my room. Okay, so that's not co-regulation. That is going to just exacerbate any nervous system dysregulation already there. Whereas a regulated parent with a robust nervous system is going to be able to say, okay, I can see that you're really battling right now. Come, just sit here, tell me what's going on. Okay, so there's a regulation, and the person learns that I can tolerate discomforts. I can tolerate big emotions. I can tolerate when I go into fight and flight or when I go into collapse. And so then I don't go into the cycle of staying hyper-aroused or staying in a collapsed state. So when we haven't had that co-regulation in our own lives, we tend to often have a more sensitive nervous system template, which, like I say, affects our emotional well-being, affects our physical well-being. All right. I just want to, once again, just make sure that we're all on the same page. So is this interesting? Is this, does it resonate? Do you have any questions? Because not everyone's going to necessarily see this in themselves. Okay. All right. What's most important for me is just if there's any questions.
No,
Great.
this is helpful. I find it's very true for me.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing. Great. All right. Well, let me continue then. Okay. No. Oh, I have to go back to the screen. Can you see? So my tech needs a lot of working on here. Can you all see my screen share? Because I've lost it. Okay, I'm going to stop that again and start it again, and then I'll be able to see it. Oh, well, I'm not seeing it. Anyway, can you see my screen? Or is it just, it does say you're screen sharing. It's interesting. What would the role of work environment be, and would co-regulation? Okay, I'm going to have a look at that as well. And then I'll come back to figuring out my screen. Okay. What would the role of work environment be, and would co-regulation be valid within high stress environments? Absolutely. So, thanks for letting me know you could see it. Okay, so what is really interesting is in a work environment, many of us will be drawn to us. So a work environment is a system. Or if you work with a constellation therapist who work with systems, they'll call it a constellation. It's a constellation of energies, of different dynamics and people together. Now, the first ever system that you were born into is your family system. So if you're born into a dysregulated, dysfunctional family system, you often unconsciously will be attracted to a dysregulated and dysfunctional work environment. Or, not necessarily that, but within the work environment, you may then experience certain people in the work environments in the same way as you experienced people in the very first system you're in, which is in your home environment. So yes, definitely there can be a toxic work environment where there's a lot of dysregulation because the people at the top are not regulated. And then that can't filter through. Then there's no co-regulation in the entire system. Because these systems are so profoundly impactful, actually. And we, especially if you have a sensitive nervous system, our nervous systems pick up very quickly and easily on the vibes, for want of a better word, the environment, the atmosphere. Especially if we may have grown up in an atmosphere where we had dysregulated parents and maybe had short tempers, for instance, we will very quickly and easily perceive that and pick that up in other people. And in a work environment, therefore, you're going to be more sensitive to also picking up on those kind of things happening around you. And that's especially the case if it is not a regulated, or not a well-regulated work environment where there is a lot of perhaps authoritarian control, which is the distorted masculine top-down control versus the feminine collaboration and mutual respect and understanding. Yes, I hope that answers your question. Okay. Now, I'll close that. This is the weirdest thing. I just can't find my screen. So I'm going to stop sharing so that you can see me then. Okay, can you see me now? All right, well, it says stop. No, it still says you're screen sharing.
We see you anyway, Carrie.
Okay. All right.
And we see sensitive nervous system slide.
So you can see it. Okay, well, that's good because I've just found it as well in a different way. Okay, it seems to have swapped my two around. So let's see if I can change that from here, though I can't. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm going to just stop sharing. Stop sharing. All right, there we go. So what I was going to say next is, got to remember my slides. So what happens is with all of this is I slowly in my life became aware of the psychology part first. Then I became aware of the masculine, feminine through a beautiful mentor of mine, Juliet. She now calls herself Juliet Gaia. She was Juliet Haynes. And I started to realize how I'd lived my entire life in this distorted masculine energy. And then I flipped over and became all feminine and all about body and emotions. And actually, you can't do that either. You actually do need to have both. A friend of mine said to me once, but I don't understand, Kerry, because I'm good at organizing things. I'm the one who people will turn to. These are good skills. And she was right. There's nothing wrong with being someone who has those more masculine skills, but they have to be balanced by the feminine. So I learned to start balancing masculine and feminine in my life. And then I started learning how to bring the nervous system work in. So what I did was, through the process of my own healing journey, I noticed a number of steps that I had taken to get to where I'd gotten. And I actually happened to just be repeating them with many of my clients. So I put them together in what I call the fatigue to flow pathway, which I wanted to share for you to see if this can perhaps be used in your own life. So the first step is awareness. You can't change something if you don't see it. Yes, perhaps many of you are feeling, you're feeling that that something's not right, but you can't necessarily put your finger on what it is. And you don't know how to change it because you don't necessarily know what it is that needs to change. So awareness is about the understanding of some of the stuff I've shared with you today. It's about noticing where you may be living in that distorted masculine energy. Do you carry too much? Do you try and control it with other people around you? Are you an over-functioning woman? This is a big one. A lot of my clients are in relationships where they over-function, and the men, or not necessarily even men, it doesn't matter what relationship they're in, whether it's a heterosexual or homosexual relationship, the partner usually underfunctions when the one partner overfunctions. And then these people get the overfunctioner gets upset because the underfunctioning person's underfunctioning. But actually, the overfunctioning person doesn't know how to put down the load they're carrying because it is so fundamental to their identity, their sense of safety, and to how they've always just been. And so this is a big part of awareness. We have to become aware of these patterns to be able to change them. Awareness, I'm going to guide you right now in an exercise. Awareness has to do with body awareness. So in this moment, I'd like you please to all close your eyes and just take your awareness to your breath, noticing the path of your breath without changing it, just noticing it, just being curious. And as you continue to notice your breath, what you're doing is allowing your breath to bring you back into your body. So becoming aware of how disconnected you may have been and how connected you are in your body or not. So even just this momentary awareness of, am I in my body or am I in my head? And then I'm going to ask you to focus right now on whether you are leaning back and dropping down. Is your body soft? Is it relaxed? Or are you pulling up and pushing forward? Is there contraction or tension in your jaw, in your shoulders? And maybe right now, because you've been sitting listening to me, you might be quite relaxed. So I'd like you to think of a normal day where you wake up and you start to get ready for the day. You've got a long to-do list. Maybe you've got children, you've got to get ready for school. Maybe there's traffic you have to contend with. Perhaps if you do work there, well, whether you work or not, you might have a full email box that you have to address. And there's demands and there's just so much to do, so many things happening, and the time just goes so fast. As you visualize this, as you place yourself back in that day, what is happening to your body? Are you still relaxed? Are you still leaning back and drop down? Or are your shoulders starting to come up around your ears? You're starting to pull up in your body, pull out of your pelvis, like you're in fight flight. So I'd like you can open your eyes. Just actually, perhaps you can share with me, what did you notice here? So did you notice that you were pulling up and pushing forward? Did you notice that you were leaning back and dropping down? Did you notice a change when you focused on stresses in your day? You're welcome to either to put something in the chat or just to talk if you want to. Okay, so Lucy, you notice you have to adjust your posture. Okay. Tighten up easily when thinking about family issues, all right? So I'd really like to encourage all of you to tension in different parts of the body becoming more evident. Yes, good. So awareness can be as simple as just stopping every now and then to notice what's happening in your body, to notice how much you are carrying in your body. Noticing my body just came as a shock. I realized how little I have noticed. I've noticed it today. It felt like a stranger. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. Yeah, it's amazing. We can go through an entire day and not be in our bodies. We're in our heads. Or we just, yeah, it's that disconnection. It's like we just leave our bodies. And you're certainly not alone in that. So awareness is about becoming aware of how often you're falling into these patterns of the distorted masculine energy, of being tense and contracted. And that tension and contraction is an indication of where your nervous system is at. A relaxed nervous system is going to result in a softened body. It's going to be dropped down, resting back. Okay, so that's awareness. So when I work with clients, I always also help them to understand why they are where they are now based on what's happened in their past, based on the unconscious, all the unconscious patterns that have been learned that they unconsciously or consciously chose to take on as adaptations, and where they come from and how they play out now in behaviors and responses. So all of that can be very helpful. Then the second part, so we've got awareness, and the second part is connection. Now, connection is because those three things that I pointed out to you, the trauma adaptations, the masculine, feminine balance, and the nervous system dysregulation, what's common to all of them, well, the distorted masculine and the distorted nervous system, or a dysregulated nervous system, is disconnection. Disconnection from your truth, disconnection from your body, disconnection from your emotion, disconnection from your needs. This is a big part of also why many of us can be overwhelmed and exhausted, because when we're always meeting everyone else's needs and doing everything for everyone else and meeting our environment without going in, we're self-abandoning. We're not giving ourselves what we need. So connection is so vital as part of this healing and balancing that's needed. So when I talk about connection, when I work with women, it's connection to the body, it's connection to the divine, and this can be anything. Everyone's different, so it works with those with religious affiliations, but I do bring in the idea of the masculine, feminine. So I've got another little exercise for you that I'll lead around that, and then connection to your inner child. When we start to go within, instead of just responding outside of ourselves and leaving ourselves, we signal safety to our body. Then the nervous system does feel safe. It can start to more easily go into a relaxed state. Then we can listen to our intuition. Then we can know what our needs are. This doesn't feel good. Yeah, this feels really good. And that's when we can start to flow more easily in life. I'm jumping way ahead into the other parts of my pathway already. Okay, so when I said to you to feel into your body, if you just close your eyes again, the leaning back part, I'd like you to imagine that there's a golden pillar of light down your spine. It's like a tree trunk. Solid, centered, strong, stable. And it's centering you and holding you and anchoring you. This is the healthy masculine that is in balance with the feminine. This is what that energy is like when we can embody it. It is also like the riverbank. So I'd like you to imagine, what would it feel like if you were the raging river, but the riverbanks are so solid and constant, and they just hold the water and guide her on her path. That is healthy masculine. And healthy masculine energy is also being seen as you are in your fullness, without there being any judgment. It's constant presence. There's no abandoning. This is constant, unwavering, non-judgmental presence. That is healthy masculine. And then I'd like you to imagine that you drop right down into the earth. And you are cradled within the womb of the earth, where it is warm and nourishing, and everything that you need is there to feed you and support you. It's like being held by the Great Mother. You are loved deeply. And so your body can surrender and soften and rest fully. This is healthy feminine. And the more that our body can be wired to tune back into the masculine and energy like this and the feminine energy, the more we can stay in our body and embody those qualities, the more it changes our nervous system. The more that we come to understand who we truly are, the more we show up and shine our light fully because we feel safe, because we're connected, we're in touch with the essence of ourselves. Okay, so that's where connection is really important. So it's awareness, connection. The next phase is release. This is about releasing trauma, which has not been resolved, because trauma sits in the body and it shapes that nervous system template, and it results in us being more easily hyper-aroused or hyper-aroused. And it means that we respond in very patterned ways in relationships. So if in the past we have had an experience of abuse, we will tend to experience people around us as abusive if we have not resolved the traumas from the past, because the nervous system holds that pattern in the body. So it's very important to release trauma. I use a modality called BWRT, which I can highly recommend to any of you. It doesn't have to be with me, with anyone, any BWRT practitioner. And release is also about letting go of all the old ways that no longer serve you. So the rescuing, the protecting, the controlling, finding a balance with all of that. Doing it from a place that feels true to you, not because you feel obligated or because it's conditioned unconsciously to keep you safe, but because this is what you want to do. So it's releasing the old patterns. So it's awareness, connection, release, receive. When we release, when we feel safe enough through connection to release what's no longer serving us, we then start to receive what is more in alignment with us. So our outside world, actually, it's amazing. When we shift inside, the external environment changes. The people will show up that you need. The relationships show up that are in alignment with the work you've done within. They're safer relationships. They are, there's more connection, for instance, because you are more connected to yourself, because you are feeling safer in yourself. So the receive is an openness now to receiving an abundance of possibilities and options. And it's also about receiving intuitive guidance. So when we're connected, we feel safe, we've let go of our old stories, we can start to drop in and receive and hear our intuition. And then finally, the fifth phase is flow. So flow is learning how to work with natural cycles and rhythms. Because like I said, women's bodies don't work the same as men's bodies. We're all impacted by, well, actually this I can share with you. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So this is, there's 4 phases in all the natural cycles and rhythms in your menstrual cycle. So obviously if you are in menopause, this doesn't apply. And it also doesn't apply to a medicated cycle, so someone who's on the pill. But menstruation, seasons, the daily circadian rhythm, and the lunar cycle all have these 4 phases. The 2 below the line that are darker are masculine, are feminine in energy, and the 2 above the line are masculine. So for instance, the root phase is winter, it's menstruation, it's the darkest part of the night, so it's midnight to 6 a.m., and it is the new moon. So it's usually the darkest time. It's the time when we have the least energy. It's the time, though, when our intuition is on fire. So when we can really draw on our inner wisdom. So each of these phases comes with a gift comes with an impact on our nervous system, comes with an impact on our vitality. But we tend to go through life, through every phase of life, through every phase of the menstrual cycle, the lunar cycle, the day, the seasons, trying to show up in full-on mode, like on and functioning at our top level. We're not wired to do that. The good news, though, is that if you learn how to work within the cycle correctly, so for instance, if you allow yourself to create a healthy foundation of rest in the rooted phase, you'll find that you'll get through the cycle far easier. Things will flow, things will show up in your life. So for instance, in the radiate phase, it's often where we manifest. So in the root phase is where we have ideas, we are creative, things come to us if we're in touch with our intuition. And those things will often materialize in the radiate phase, which is summer, ovulation, it's midday to 6 p.m. and it is full moon. I've sold 3 houses using this cycle. I'm not going to go too fully into this because it's going to take too long. But just to explain that when we learn how our bodies actually function and we learn how to leverage that, we get so much more done. Actually, it doesn't make sense because it involves more rest, but we get more done. But there's more spaciousness in our lives, there's more flow, there's more ease. Now, some of that you can't do yet. And also you're only hearing some of this for the first time. So where does that leave you? So this is what I'd like you to do in your own lives. 3 steps. Stop. Connect and listen. So stop means you have to create stillness in your life. You have to create a time to connect to you. This is it's going to be hard because most of the time we're uncomfortable when we stop. So we want to leave. We want to leave our bodies again. We want to doom scroll on our phones. We want to go and exercise or eat something because it feels uncomfortable to sit with the dysregulation and with the emotions that we've been taught are bad and that no one helped us to co-regulate. So when you start to learn just to give 2 minutes to that experience, you're already signaling safety to the body. You're creating a new pattern. You're rewiring something. So how can you, in your day, either choose one longer time in your day or maybe some quick check-ins during the day just to stop? So that's the first part. Then you're going to drop in, like we did in these practices. What's going on? Am I leaning back? Am I dropped down in my body? Am I soft? Am I relaxed? Or am I pulling up and pushing forward? Are my shoulders up around my ears? Is my jaw tight? This alone is going to already be a big step. And I know it might sound silly, but even this small step can be a big step for you. And then finally, when you're there, what you'll start to notice is you might start to get more feedback from your body. You might start to get some insight. Maybe you'll just feel like, oh, this doesn't feel good, this space I'm in. I don't want to be with these people. Because you're now connecting to your body, you're going to start to notice, my body goes into contraction when I'm around these people. Oh, my body feels soft and relaxed and open when I'm around these people. So you start to learn to listen to what you need and what's good for you. And then as you honor that, you truly signal safety to your body because you're no longer self-abandoning around your needs. All right. Any thoughts or questions around this? Does it feel like it's something you could possibly bring into your life? Stop, connect, and listen. Have I left you with something tangible that you can notice, start to notice in your lives? Okay, you can please respond to that in the chat. And in the meantime, I'm going to, okay, great. I'm going to try this again. Yes, there we go. Yay. All right. So let's see in the chat, definitely. Okay. Anyone else, especially if there's any questions, anything you don't understand? Yes, it does. It's something that I need to remember over and over again. I know, Laura, right? Okay, so thank you, because that speaks to the next thing that I'm talking about. Now, I'm not saying you have to work with me by any means, but if any of you were chosen, if were feeling the call to do this, I just wanted to share with you some of the ways you can work with me if you want to. So firstly, I have what's called a jumpstart session on my website. This is a 45-minute session where I just help you to get a bit more clarity on where you are at the moment, why you are where you are, and what your biggest needs are. And I do something called a little body talk session where I tune into the body and mind connection to see what's out of balance. It's through muscle testing, kinesiology. I can do this online. So that's the Jumpstart session, which you can find on my website, which is kerrymagnus.net. There's no www, just kerrymagnus.net, not .net. Then I have a one-on-one fatigue to flow coaching program, which is 8 online sessions, plus it's actually 4 body talk sessions recorded. There's companion books. I record all the calls to keep and to refer back to. And then at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm launching the Rooted membership. So this is why I say that Laura's comment is really useful right now. I have found that in my own life, I mean, I teach this, but I need to be reminded as well. And it's definitely easier for me. It becomes far easier than it used to. I can feel that I've rewired my brain because it's more the feelings of relaxation. My nervous system response more quickly will go back there. It remembers it because I've been doing it a lot. But I have needed my groups. So I go, I've got 2 groups that I belong to, 2 communities where I meet with women who are on a similar journey, because it helps me, 1, to be co-regulated, and 2, to remember, and to also be held accountable to continue this kind of lifestyle and these practices. And so that is why I created the Rooted membership. And I'm launching that at the moment, starting next month. So I know some of you on this group are local to St. Francis Bay. Some of you are going to be watching this replay, and then some of you are from other parts of the world or South Africa. And what this entails membership is it's a monthly call. So the biggest component is a 90-minute call once a month. Or if there's enough interest in St. Francis Bay, we can do it in person. And this is where I run through those 5 phases, where we focus on awareness. We look at, I do a lot of embodied work, a lot of practices to actually physically embody and change, rewiring your nervous system. It's also where I do a little bit of coaching, so I answer questions. So that'll be that once a month live call. And then the other 2 aspects are 2 shorter 10 to 15 minute nervous system regulation calls, where I will guide nervous system regulation practices. So it's a space for you to come to have that nervous system reset, to slowly start to rewire your nervous system. And it's kind of like a safe space to come back to, that can keep you just, it's also part of co-regulation, because we just don't have the spaces for co-regulation in our lives, most of us. And then there's obviously the community aspect of then being part of the community, where there can be sharing questions, asking questions. I will also be answering those within the community space. I'll be dropping prompts around things to look for, things to be aware of, and that's the Rooted community. So the Rooted membership is a month-to-month payment. It's like a subscription, but you can stop anytime you want to. Otherwise, please just let this percolate. What you need to hear will be what stays with you. Some of it you're not going to even hear at this point in time because it's a lot of information. Start with those 3 steps. Start just dropping in and connecting as consistently as you can. That is already a massive step that's going to bring some change in your life. And if you do feel like you would like some support with this, please do reach out. I love doing this work. I find it so important. Like I say, especially now at this point in life, where in the world where a new way is coming through, and it is calling on a more feminine not feminine only, balanced masculine and feminine. That's what we're needing now. And so imagine all of us having regulated nervous systems, which regulate the people around us, which then regulates the people around them. And so there's more co-regulation in general, or having regulated children who then have regulated children. Like, this work is just so important for the health of our society, for the world, and obviously for ourselves. I mean, I shouldn't frame it like that, because you're always so busy doing everything for everyone else. Do it for you. But just by doing it for you, it's going to make a difference for everyone else. And that is what's amazing about it.
Before you go, if the Rooted membership calls to you, please note enrollments are closing in 3 days' time on Sunday the 3rd. Take a look at portal.kerrymagnus.net/rooted. I'll also leave the link in the show notes.